I hope that you will see how much I love our country and the Constitution and the rights that make us free. I stand on the shoulders of so many who have come before me, including Judge Constance Baker Motley, who was the first African-American woman to be appointed to the federal bench and with whom I share a birthday. And like Judge Motley, I have dedicated my career to ensuring that the words engraved on the front of the Supreme Court building, "Equal justice under law," are a reality and not just an ideal.
That was Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, the first Black woman nominated to the Supreme Court in its 233-year history, making her opening statements today on day one of her confirmation hearings. Her remarks capped off a day of opening statements from all 22 members of the Senate Judiciary Committee in what was likely a preview of the kind of questioning Judge Jackson can expect tomorrow and Wednesday. Republicans repeatedly brought up the rancor of the Kavanaugh hearings, and as they have for weeks now, Republican senators tried to portray Jackson as a radical who is soft on crime, pointing to her record on sentencing in child pornography cases. And that is despite the fact that her record mirrors that of a majority of other federal judges. Some Republicans have also questioned her defense of Guantanamo Bay detainees during her stint as a public defender, as if the right to a defense wasn't, in fact, a hallmark of the American legal system. Democrats today provided a rebuttal of sorts to those Republican attacks.
There may be some who claim, without a shred of evidence, that she'll be a rubber stamp for this president. For these would-be critics, I have 4 words. Look at the record.
She is before us on the basis of her own merit, not on the recommendation of a secretive right-wing donor operation, hiding behind anonymous multi-million-dollar donations, and aimed at capturing the United States Supreme Court as if it were some 19th century railroad commission.
Some have even claimed that you need to show your LSAT scores to determine whether you are a top legal mind. This is incredibly offensive and condescending.
Looming over the hearing and shaping the Republican response to Jackson's nomination, the fact that Democrats appear to have the votes to confirm Jackson on their own, and that her appointment will not change the ideological balance of the Supreme Court. Judge Jackson was before this very same committee just a year ago when she was nominated for the D.C. Circuit Court. During that process, 3 Republican senators, Lindsey Graham, Lisa Murkowski, and Susan Collins, voted along with every Democrat to confirm her. It remains to be seen if there are any Republicans willing to join Democrats and confirm Jackson to the nation's highest bench. Joining us now, Harry Litman, former Deputy Assistant Attorney General and former U.S. Attorney who has clerked with 2 Supreme Court justices and prepped several judges for their confirmations. Also with us, Fatima Goss Graves, President and CEO of the National Women's Law Center, and Derek Johnson, President and CEO of the NAACP. I just want to take a moment to enjoy the history here, everyone. Before we delve into the swamp of the political back and forth, Fatima, I know that Fatima, I know that you were smiling as we played that sound from Judge Jackson, because it's been 233 years. And today, the day arrived that a Black woman has begun day one of her confirmation hearings to be on the Supreme Court. How do you think the history-making nature of this informs the proceedings that we're going to see unfold over the next couple days?
Well, it was emotional to take it all in. I think we are all seeing exactly why she is the nominee. But hearing about her upbringing and life experience, seeing her parents in the room and their looks of pride, and the fact that we are here in 2022 with this extraordinary woman who is so qualified and so credentialed, but also someone who has such clear integrity. I just think so many of us were really, really moved today.
Yeah, I wonder, Derek, because this is a historic nomination, because the Republican Party has been battling the racism in the right wing, Do you think it complicates their line of questioning as they move forward in the nomination process? Do you think that the dog whistles might have to be less explicit than they have been in prior events, if you will?
Well, I think they're going to continue with the course of questioning they've done with any appointee, particularly judicial appointee from this administration and even the Obama administration. I think some of them have more restraint than others. But you will find the Ted Cruz's, they have no restraints. The Josh Hawley, they have no restraints because dog whistle policy I'm sorry, not dog whistle policy. The dog whistle statements is what they live off of. That's how they raise money. It has nothing to do with our democracy. It has nothing to do with our qualifications. It has nothing to do with integrity because they lack integrity. So they're going to continue down that line of questioning. It'll be interesting to see what Lindsey Graham does and others of his ilk in terms of making sure we have qualified individuals on the court, which she is overly qualified to be on the Supreme Court.
Harry, if you were advising Judge Jackson on what awaits her in the coming days, what would your guidance be in sort of prepping a Supreme Court nominee, and this one in particular?
You know, I think they telegraphed it pretty well. Of course, Hawley and Cruz are going to throw out red meat lines, not even really directed against her, but in order to fundraise or to further their own presidential candidacies. But I think a lot of the big possible attacks seem to have gone by the wayside today. The number one thing that you'll have to talk about is this supposed charge that Hawley will make that she is soft on not crime generally, but sexual predators. It really doesn't hold up. As you say, it's not just that she's in line with her district. She's in line with the country, and there are very special reasons why the sexual offender guidelines are out of whack. But she'll have to counter with her overall record. But beyond that, the number one fact on both sides is she really does look like she's going to be confirmed. I thought that Graham's comments, Grassley's comments essentially telegraphed them. So what she needs to do is sort of stay in her game, not take the bait, answer things directly, not get into the arguments about should you expand the court or things that really have to do with the administration and not with the nominee. And basically, it's, you know, she is coasting slightly downhill, and I think she just has to continue on that path.
All right, I'm coasting slightly downhill. Okay, we'll monitor that, Harry. I want to draw your attention to context that Senator Amy Klobuchar offered today in terms of her nomination. Yep. Yes, the ideological balance of the court is not going to change, but let us not diminish the importance of having someone like this on the court at this precise moment in time. Let's just listen to what Senator Klobuchar had to say earlier today.
As we are here to confirm a new justice for his seat, I urge my colleagues to remember his words about how the court must consider the effect of its actions on people's lives, how it must be able to see the real people at the other end of its rulings, like Americans who are one Supreme Court decision away from losing their health insurance, or one court decision away from the ability to make their own health care choices, or the dreamers who could lose the only country they've ever known, or the people who waited for hours in the rain one recent election day in Wisconsin, wearing garbage bags and homemade masks in the middle of what would soon become a global pandemic, just to cast a ballot, just to exercise their constitutional right to vote. The court decides cases with life-changing consequences for people.
Fatima, that seems to be a plea to recognize the humanity that is embedded in some of these landmark decisions the Supreme Court has on its docket that are ahead of it, right? And the thing we kind of refer to constantly in terms of Judge Jackson's background is her role and record as a public defender, her understanding of what goes in to a court case from the other side, not the prosecutorial side, but the side of the person who has to serve the sentence. How critical do you think that is in this moment, given what the court has to rule on in the coming months and years ahead?
You know, the law can sometimes seem removed from everyday lives, but the truth is it actually deeply affects people's lives, whether it is whether or not they can have a job, whether or not they have to work as a frontline worker on a pandemic, or whether or not they are the ones that determine whether or not they're going to have children, as the court is considering this year, Roe versus Wade. And it's making that decision without a Black woman on the Supreme Court at all, despite the fact that Black women have the highest rates of maternal mortality in this country. One of these things that this nomination, I think, is revealing for all of us is what a mistake it has been not to have a court as diverse as it could be. Judge Jackson's experience as a former federal public defender means that we will finally have someone back on the court who has direct experience representing low-income federal criminal defendants. That will make a difference in the court's decisions. It'll make a difference in the types of conversations that the justices have with each other. It's exciting to think about making that sort of progress as well.